I was like confused. I was like, this lady is wrong. She's gonna die in Armageddon.
Yeah.
and and I was like, it was a slap in the face. I did not like what she said because in my mind that's still the truth. But I wanted to prove her wrong so bad. I was like, it's not a cult. I would never be part of a cult. She's wrong. And so I did my research for the first time about the religion, the history, and all of this stuff because I've never done it when I was out. And it just blew my mind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Finding the Alternative. I'm your host, Adam, 10-year former member of the Korean Doomsday Cult, as we all know, the Whimscog. And today I have a special guest with me, Aubrey Cruz. She is a fellow YouTuber, and she was from a different Doomsday Cult, one that we know very well here in America. And so I'm going to turn the time over to her and let her briefly introduce herself, and then we will get into her story. So, Aubrey?
Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you, Adam, for having me here. I'm so excited to talk to you. Well, again, my name is Aubrey Cruz, and I am a former Jehovah's Witness. I was not born into it. I was actually recruited at an early age, and I was in it for a few decades. I woke up during the pandemic, which was the most horrible time to wake up from a doomsday cult. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. But after my awakening, after I woke up, um, I started doing YouTube myself. I started telling my story. Now I'm a public speaker. I speak internationally. I have my own Facebook group called XJW Professionals, where we is very focused on former JWs who have left and now are thriving and trying to navigate the professional world. And yeah, so that's basically a brief highlight of where I've been and where I am right now.
Well, that's awesome. And we'll kind of get into the public speaking a little bit later, because I'm sure a lot of people would be very curious of, oh, how did you get into that? So we can get into that later in the video. But you said you were recruited at a young age. Can you give us a little bit more detail on that story, how you actually got involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, it's actually my mom's side of the family. So her sisters are still in it, and they kind of they live in a different state. I'm from Pennsylvania, they're from New Jersey, but they were witnesses, and they started to kind of share their Bible program with me and my brother at a young age, and my cousins actually. And that was kind of, for me, I got really into it because of my own personal vulnerabilities. So I'm an immigrant. I came here very young age, kind of hard to assimilate with the Western culture. I
Right.
didn't make friends easily either. And as a neurodivergent person, I, you know, finding structure was also very challenging for me at a young age. So the witnesses, they had what I needed at the time to thrive as a young person. And I gravitated towards that. So that, you know, now looking back, I can see, what made me attracted to the love bombing, because witnesses, they have a way of making, people feel loved, right? That's their whole thing.
Right.
Even though it's not genuine or unconditional, it was enough for me, and that was what I needed. And that's how I was able to, uh, kind of make that my stronghold, get baptized very young. And then from there, I spent, a few decades in it. I was really into it because, again, it was the fellowship, the association. It gave me a sense of purpose and structure. So, I give credit to that because there were a lot of things that helped me to thrive as an individual back then.
That makes sense. And I feel like a lot of, you know, I think across the pond, whether you're in Jehovah's Witnesses or whether you're in Whimscog, I think it's all the same, right? These organizations are designed to give you something that you feel like you need, right?
Right.
Sense of community, sense of purpose, sense of love, connection, etc. But it's not till later, maybe some is a few years. In my case, it was 10 years. In your case, maybe it was more than 10
About
years,
20. Yeah. Yeah.
about 20 years to where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this isn't actual love. This isn't actual peace. This isn't
Yeah.
actual joy,
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people think, oh, how can smart people get involved in cults, right? Because I feel like you and I feel like a lot of the people, especially in the cults we came from, are very intelligent people. They're not dumb.
Right. Right.
And I feel
It,
like they attract you because whether you're smart or whether you're not smart, we're all human. We all need that connection. We all need that love, that sense of belonging,
community.
regardless of who
Community
we
is a
are.
very big thing. Community is a very,
Absolutely.
very, very big thing. So it's true. There's so many people who are very smart, and the thing is, when you're in it, um, it, they just shut off the critical thinking part. So you're not really able to expand or expand on knowledge or worldly knowledge, because that critical thinking is shut off, because now they use that as a weapon. They weaponize that, so that you're not able to look at, so that they just basically control the information that you take in. So
Right.
smart and nice people, but at the same time they follow blindly,
Yeah.
without awareness, right? You're not aware of it.
Yeah. And any outside ideas or any outside beliefs or understanding is considered a threat. It's not just a different of
Hmm.
opinion, different of belief. It's an actual threat to you.
To Yeah, to your spirituality or your relationship with Jehovah.
Yeah. And maybe for some who aren't familiar with a Jehovah's Witness, do you think you could break down some of the main beliefs or some of the main things you at least believed while being in the Jehovah's Witness?
Oh, it's been a while, so I'm gonna try. So,
That's fair.
yeah, I mean, they believe in Armageddon, right? It's a doomsday thing. So a lot of your that's why the preaching work, that is their main way of kind of saving people before the destruction of Armageddon. Um, so that's a belief that they have, that that we're living in the last days, and we need to have this sense of urgency to save people so that everybody can worship Jehovah. That's their God. They have so many beliefs and policies. I can't really list them all, but
For sure.
they also believe in the resurrection hope. So if you have a loved dead one, and they have this hope of your loved one being resurrected, and you will live forever in paradise earth. They also have this belief that you know it's kind of us versus the world mentality. So it's
Right.
the witnesses versus the world. And there's only, like, I guess, roughly 8 million witnesses compared to everyone, the rest of the world. But if you're not a worshiper of Jehovah, then, when that time comes, uh, i-
You're destroyed.
exactly, the rest of the world would be kind of destroyed.
And
So
there's no gray
it's,
area, right? Like there's
yeah,
no
there's no
gray
great,
area. It's either
uh, I,
us or nothing.
right, right. They do instill that, us versus them mentality. So, and they just have a long list of things you cannot do in the religion, and and it's supposed to keep you very pure, and the standards are very high so that you can make it to paradise earth, and that you will survive. You will be a member of surviving Armageddon.
Right.
So
And could you talk a little bit, something that I found that's similar with my cult and your cult was the 144,000. What is the 144,000 in Jehovah's Witnesses terminology?
144,000 are the ones that will reign with Jesus Christ in heaven. So it's very specific. So it's just 144,000 of them. Whereas
And then
everyone
there's the
else
great,
will be the great crowd, yes, will just be everyone that will be living on earth.
so the 144,000 are God's favorite children, but the great multitude or great crowd is the one that's like, well, you're still my kid and I still love you, but these ones, though, these ones I like you a lot more.
Yeah, probably.
At least that's how I understood it in my cult
Uh-huh.
because it was very similar. The 144,000, they're the
Oh.
chosen ones, they're God's favorite. And then there's the great multitude where it's like, yeah, I guess I won't destroy you, but
Uh-huh.
still not good enough for what we want you to be. It's just like it's almost like the honorable mention, right?
Uh-huh.
Honorable
Uh-huh.
mention, not first place, but your honorable mention. Um, and I think that's interesting how they have that because not only do you have us versus them, but even inside the organization, you have that divide too, right? So you're
There's
not
a
even
hierarchy.
comfortable.
There's a
Yeah.
hierarchy. Oh, definitely for sure. There's a hierarchy in a lot of things. There's a divide in a lot of things in gender and in race and in status.
Oh,
You don't know
absolutely.
that until you're out and you realize, oh, how, you know, really it's a patriarchy system. So it's like
Right.
it really limits you in terms of what you can do. Personally for me as a woman in that organization. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say too, even though the Whimsicog believes in a God the Mother, right? It's still very patriarchal. And I'm not saying like, okay, yes, are men and women, do they have different roles in society and do they have different roles in the family? Of course, but
Mhm.
it doesn't, I would say oneness doesn't mean sameness, but I
Mhm.
feel like in these organizations, it's more just like there is no oneness. There
Right.
is, you are lower than the men, which I think is completely absurd when it
Yeah.
comes to, say, there's some things that I do that's stupid and my wife calls me out on it and I appreciate it because I'm like, yeah, you're right. That was actually really stupid. You know what I mean? But even though the Whimsicog has this mother god hierarchy, it's still very much controlled by men, which is still kind of funny to me
Yep. Yep.
because you would think it'd be the other way around, but it's like, nope, only men can deliver sermons, only men can baptize, only men, only men, only men, And what does a woman do? Have babies in the kitchen. Right? Actually, they don't like
Wow.
babies in the Whimsicog. Let me take that back. No
Really?
babies.
Okay. Okay.
Oh yeah, they don't like babies, but well, they do now because we
Yeah.
call them out on it. But so now they'll probably say, "No, we love kids. Everyone have kids, right?" But realistically, they don't
Interesting.
condone having babies.
Okay.
Women in the kitchen, right? Women can,
Wow.
take care of the kids, but that's basically it, right? And
It's
it's
like
just funny
really going
because,
back in time.
right? And it's like, but you claim you have God the Mother in the flesh, and she's leading the church, but yet it's still just like anything else. Like it doesn't
It's
make any
just so
sense.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's very, yeah, it's very bizarre. And things like that, messaging like that to a woman is it does something to your belief system when you leave when you leave an organization like that, an organization that puts women down and limits them. It really is a challenge for many women that leave the witnesses or an organization like that, to step into their power and into leadership roles because they were, kind of, that
Put on the
kind
back
of stuff is
burner.
repressed. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
repressed. You're not allowed to have your own voice or speak up. It's a in the organization. It's a headship arrangement. So
Yeah.
it's men all the way up, and women are at the bottom.
Right. You're
So
just known as somebody's wife, right?
yeah, a helper. It's so yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely a challenge for women when they leave, and it's pretty valid
And
reason
I would
why.
argue too, to that point, it creates a breeding ground of abuse, spousal abuse.
Yes. Yes. Well, a lot of
Because
just abuse in the
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I would say regardless
unfortunately.
of yeah, but I would just think because if women are put so low to where it's like you just need to submit, be quiet,
Yeah.
submit, and then it's like then the men can basically get whatever they want, and they can do
Yeah.
whatever they want, and the women
Mhm.
just take it. And I've seen that not only in, I mean, I've heard about it in Jehovah's Witnesses
Yeah.
because I've talked to a few people in Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses,
Yeah.
and it's the same as in the Whimsicog. There is so much spousal abuse that it's just
Wow.
because arranged marriages, and it's just men, whatever men say, whatever the men wants to do, you just do it. That's your duty. And I can't
Yeah.
even imagine
Yeah.
dealing with that, honestly.
Mhm. Sorry, my cat is just here. She just jumped on my table.
It's okay.
She likes to
I
be
have
part of
three
the
of them,
interview.
so. But
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, with the 140 over 1,000. Sorry, I go off on tangents because it's kind of what I do.
no
But I
problem.
remember it got so bad because they create inner turmoil. So, and I think the reason why they create the divide between 140 over 1,000 and great multitude, and I think this is true between cults, is because it makes you not complacent in the cult, right? Because you could be like, oh, well, it's us versus them, and I'm here, so I'm fine.
Hmm.
But then that creates stagnation, that creates laziness in the cult's eyes. So how do we
Hmm.
combat that? Because they think they're good because they're just not in the world. Well, we got
Hmm.
to create that. We got to create that other divide, the inward divide, where it's like, okay, you need to cross into this threshold, the 140 over 1,000, if you really, really want to believe, if you really, really want to please God, etc. And so
Hmm.
it creates that inner turmoil
Interesting.
inside with the rat
Okay.
race.
Oh,
And
wow.
I remember thinking too, like, it got so bad to where I remember when people that were higher up in the church, they would
Yeah.
leave, I would feel relieved and be like, oh, it's that much easier to get to that spot, right?
Really?
Which is sadistic.
Wow. Wow.
But
I never had that desire, actually, but I can see how. I can see how people could have that desire. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But
and it just
that's
creates
an
that.
interesting angle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least that's my angle. That's how I understand it because you would see that because they would always encourage you. Well, yeah, you feel good, right? You feel good that you're in the truth now, right? But
Yeah.
don't just be okay with being in the truth. You want to be 144,000.
Oh,
So
wow.
it creates that rat race inside too.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw, the competitiveness or like kind of like the rat race mentality in the organization um from a different angle because what cults do, they need to keep you busy so that you
Absolutely.
can't have
Think.
time to think and to open up your critical thinking and all of that. So the rat race in the organization was mainly the preaching work.
Yeah.
And it was so we had pioneers. Like you were judged if you were not elevating yourself as a pioneer or reaching out. So there's definitely a lot of judgment towards the members. They don't like to admit it, but there is, like, so that is the rat race. You are encouraged to always reach out and do more and do more and do more and do more, and that's because they don't really, they want to fill up your schedule so that
Yeah.
again, you don't have time to think about anything else or to look up anything else or to even if you have any doubts, they want to keep you busy so that you know you can repress those doubts.
Yeah. And I would say when it came to my organization, there was tons of preaching too, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. I would actually
Hmm.
argue maybe we preached actually more because we were always out there. We were going to Walmarts, Targets, malls,
Yeah.
train stations, and even going into gated complexes, like trying to get into
Yeah.
like where we
Yeah.
can't go
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason why we did that is because they would always say, hey, if somebody passed you by and you didn't share the good news with them, their
Yeah.
blood is on your hands.
Oh, that's very similar. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
That
you're just like, I can't not preach to him because then I'm a murderer, right?
Yeah, yeah. They'll
I
they'll
remember
make you
feeling
feel
that all the
guilty.
time.
Feel guilty for resting or not doing enough, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's definitely the type of messaging that we also heard in the organization. And that's why we've always had that sense of urgency to preach. I mean, I don't know what it is right now, but when I was pioneering, which is kind of, you know, regular publishers, they can, I don't know what their new ministry arrangement is now, but when I was in, I had to make like 70 hours a month. you know that's a
dang,
lot. 70
that's a
hours
lot.
a month on top of my 9 to 5 job. Like, and not only that, you're suffocated with meetings too. So you have weekly meetings that you go to, like 2 or 3 weekly meetings, and then on top of that you have to go to out in service. get your hours, you have to report those hours. It does a lot to a person's mental and physical state over time. Like it's another rat race, right? So,
Yeah.
and if you're not reaching your goals, you do feel guilty,
Unworthy.
unworthy. And like you
Useless.
said, like maybe I should have preached more, because then again, if I didn't, maybe I have blood on my hands type of thing. Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you, in Jehovah's Witnesses, did they ever use sleep deprivation?
What do you mean?
Like making you basically go without sleep for periods of time, or
I mean, not intentionally, but like we mentioned, like the whole rat race of like you have to, eh, you know, eh, really reach out as much as you can to fill out to do pioneering, to go, just that. To me, that's kind of sleep deprivation, because how
right.
are you getting enough rest for yourself?
Well,
Yeah.
in our cult that I came from, we had to every year. It was called the Day of Atonement. It's a once a year thing where you'd actually have to pray out loud all of your sins and
Wow.
with everybody in the congregation.
Mm,
And one of the sins is actually sleeping too much. Like getting enough sleep was basically a sin. And
mm.
not only that, but 30 times a year, they would make you go to the church at 5 a.m. for worship. And so you're waking up. It doesn't matter if you have kids or not. You
Mm-hmm.
literally have to go for 7, 10 days at a time at 5 a.m. Doesn't matter if you
Wow.
work, doesn't matter whatever the case is. You would have to take your kids. Excuse me. You'd have to take your kids and go to worship at 5 a.m. So you're waking up 3:30, getting dressed, getting your kids dressed, everything, hauling them to the car, taking them to the service, and then it's like a 30-minute service.
Hmm.
And then the kids are just like sitting in their chair, just like,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's brutal for the
and you're
kids. Yeah.
just like trying to keep it you're trying to keep it all together yourself because
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you leave at 6 when the service is done,
Mm-hmm.
you have to go to work, right? And it's for 7, 10 days on end.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh. Oof. I
And
mean,
only that, but they'll say, oh, sleeping too much is a sin, like getting your actual rest is a sin.
that is wild. But yeah, and they make you feel guilty for getting rest.
For anything, for even just going on vacation, right? Oh, well, if you have time to go on vacation, don't you have time to preach and save souls, right?
Yeah. 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 That's pretty much, when in at the organization, if you're on vacation, you should, you know, catch a meeting while you're on your while you're on vacation. Like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
it's all blended in, It's your
yeah.
lifestyle.
Well, we would have to get permission to go on vacation. If we were a leader, we'd have to get permission to go on vacation. And wherever we're going
Mhm.
on vacation, we'd have to find a church to go
Mhm.
to, or else we
Mhm.
couldn't go to that
Oh,
place.
I think yours is more strict than witnesses. I think
That's crazy then.
it's just like we do. It wasn't like they would monitor us. There's definitely policing, but in terms of like, you know, vacation, they would always use this like um, conscience thing, like whatever your conscience allows, which is not really conscience. It's more whatever your indoctrination allows. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, we would go on vacations, but also make time to study and to catch a meeting, go to a kingdom hall if you can. If not, tie into a phone line or a Zoom, type of thing. Like whatever you do, don't you, you know it's part of your routine at that point.
Yeah, that's so maybe Wisconsin is a little bit stricter. I thought Jehovah's Witness was far
Maybe
stricter.
some, no, maybe some things. I mean, we couldn't
We
celebrate
we could
anything,
get
right?
blood in the Whimsicog.
Yeah, I mean, the whole blood thing, the witnesses is, pretty dangerous. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you have any crazy stories about that you've heard about
I
not being able to get
don't.
blood?
No, I personally don't. But I did interview someone on my YouTube channel, who actually, she was she grew up as a witness, but her dad had um he had like a really bad hemorrhage, and he wasn't a witness, but she was a witness. But part of his story is that he was saved because of the no blood program. So he was saved with, yeah, so Jehovah's Witnesses believe in no blood, right?
Right.
They just believe in some fractions of blood, but anyway, but because of that, because of her dad's story of being saved by this no blood type of surgery, later down when she left the organization, she actually became a leader in this blood management initiative, like worldwide. So she took this no blood thing, and that actually inspired her to you know to kind of further that initiative, and now she's also a speaker, international speaker on the blood management program. So it's different from what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, but it's kind of similar.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a wild experience. I think she took it to a different level. I mean, and now it's basically how can we manage our own blood versus what the witnesses say, that refrain from blood, or just take fractions of your blood. This is
Yeah.
actually backed by science, and you can manage your own blood so that it can save your life.
Interesting. Yeah, I've
It's a
never
very interesting. Yeah, I know.
never heard anything like that before.
I love picking. Yeah, and yeah. So not that's I think that's a great experience of again taking something like that from your past, and then learning to do something about it, but impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think obviously, I would say just like the cult mindset is, hey, look, because of our teaching, right, someone was saved or healed,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
at the same time, though, do you think they'll ever say an example of where, hey, our teaching actually made somebody pass away? You're probably never going to hear that
Of
side of
course
it.
not. No, of course not. They like to brush all that stuff under the rug, right? They never like to apologize or say what they've done wrong. It's supposed to be what they call an organization, a perfect organization ran by imperfect men, right? So,
Who don't need to apologize, from what I heard. Even if they
yeah.
get it wrong, they do not need to apologize. That's what
Okay.
they said,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
They don't. They never do. So,
in the pure worship session that I watched. That's what they said.
yeah.
And I would say it's very similar to Whimsicog in the sense of, I mean, we don't have any blood stuff. We
Hmm.
actually do blood drives, but they used to say that if you kept Passover, you would never die.
Hmm.
And then when people started dying, even though they kept Passover, they'd be like, oh, well, they didn't keep it right, or they didn't do it right, or they didn't have enough faith, or whatever the case
Hmm.
is. And it's like, okay, but faithful members started dying because that's just how it works. And
Right.
when you're alive, you die sometimes,
Yes.
And so they would sweep it under the rug. And now it's like, oh, well, it doesn't make you live per se, but it saves you spiritually. It protects your spiritual life. And it's like, but that's not what you've been saying, though. You've been saying
Mm.
if I keep it, I'll be protected physically, like the
Yeah.
Israelites and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how I get to see a similar thing where, you know, they used to talk all the time about, oh, this member kept Passover, and look, this happened to him, not a scratch.
Hmm.
But then there's other articles that you see that you never hear about where
Yes.
there was this one family, unfortunately, this sweet family in the East Coast that got in a car accident, and all but one of the little kids survived. Or sorry,
Mm.
all but one of the little kids was able to make a recovery. Everyone else passed away. His mom, his dad, the rest of his family.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, but where was Passover for that?
Yeah.
So that's just where it gets really dangerous with these kind of. I mean, of course, Jehovah's Witness has their own thing with the blood transfusion, but I would say
Yes.
Whimsicog is not exempt from
Right.
putting people in dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Um, and the crazy thing is I'm not saying this is the reason, but they got into this car accident after a 10-day prayer week where they had to go and pray early in the morning for 10 days straight.
Yeah. Wow.
Are they correlated? They could be, right? I
Yeah.
can't say that they are,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, though, okay, why were they driving home from the church when this happened, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I can't blame the church or anything like that, but you can put two and two together and come up with your
Yes.
own reasoning. And so,
That's sad.
and that's why we speak out and that's why we do these things, because at the end of the day, like, people could seriously get hurt and people could seriously lose their life, their limbs, or whatever the case is, because they have this false sense of, hey, I'm going to be protected. I'm going to be all right. It's like, but what about the other cases where it wasn't all right that they don't show you?
Yeah.
Maybe if they showed you that, you can make an educated decision that could
Mm-hmm. Now,
determine
did
the rest of
they,
your life.
in your church, did they control information as well? Like they didn't want you to look at external information?
Oh, yeah. They would say going online is like Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Mm,
And they would say, if you eat of it, what did God say? You're going to die. Right. So
mm,
people go online and they
mm-hmm,
research and they see facts
mm-hmm,
and history and logic, and they see all the stuff, uncover all the stuff that the church does. Then what
hmm.
happens? They fall away. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah.
because they'll announce to the church, hey, if you read this or if you go and look at this stuff, you're going to
Yeah.
leave, you're going to die.
It's the same
And
thing.
then, yeah,
Yeah. But did your church allow higher education?
they
Like, were you
used to
able to go to
not.
college? Okay.
They used to not. So back in the day, like 15, I would say 15 years ago. So for instance, like my wife, she was found on college campuses. She was found in the Salt Lake Community College, which is here in Utah. And around that time, that's when they started shifting away from that rhetoric, where it was
Mm,
like, okay, now it's fine, because years after she dropped out, they started doing like, oh, university student college clubs, right? And they
mm,
started being involved in college campuses and like establishing clubs and promoting college and
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But back in the day, it was like, why are you going to school? Don't you know, like, doomsday is coming? Don't you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Armageddon's coming? What are you doing? You need to preach. But like every reactive cult, they, over the course of years of people calling them out for it, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? We love college. You should go to college. We love
Mm-hmm.
college. We have college clubs. We do volunteer services on college campuses. Like, how could you say we ever said such a thing? You
So
know,
interesting. Yeah. So now
it's,
they're okay with members going to college.
yes. But
Mm.
before, they were very much opposed to it.
Sounds like the witnesses too. I mean, they just recently made an announcement that it's okay to pursue higher education. Meanwhile, for decades they were like, no, higher education is, yeah, same rhetoric.
Same
It's like, oh,
premise.
you can't, don't go to college because the end is right around the corner,
Yeah.
and you're going to associate yourself with worldly people. You're going to, I mean, that's the reason why it's like, when you're in, it was because of college when I went back to school for my psychology degree, right? When I woke up, I went back to school for my psychology degree. I learned so much about the mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is why they don't want you to go to college, because you're going to have to start thinking about things.
Yeah. You have to think outside of the box that they built around your mind.
Yeah. So it's dangerous for their members to be in an environment like that where it actually opens up their critical thinking. But they just allowed it, which is interesting. But I think I know probably it's because of maybe
The
the
backlash.
generation. I think it's a generation that we're living in. There's a lot of Gen Zs and Alphas that they are not in this, they're different from millennials, beyond. They are not as
Submissive.
followers or submissive. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have access to the internet back then. I didn't have access to, I mean, AOL was just, starting, but I didn't know
Yeah.
how to navigate Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yeah.
So like that's such an important tool. The internet is such an important tool to people's awakening. And
Absolutely.
with Gen Zs and these younger generation, I'm telling you, the society has to kind of adapt to them a little bit and to open up to them a little bit to make it less culty, I think.
Yeah.
So They've definitely um loosened up a little bit, like going to school, and you can wear pants now, and you can grow a beard. Like, to me, it's so I just think that it's because this younger generation won't be as submissive, or won't have that follower mentality. They're very
Yeah,
wise, and they're very like they have so much resources that we never had.
absolutely. And what about the other people before that were rebuked and looked down on for going to college or thinking about college? Like, where's
Mhm.
the I'm sorry to them for
No,
like,
it would just be like, hey, new light, new light. It's always
yeah,
this. I don't know if you're familiar with the new light concept, but it's like
yeah,
that's how they don't like to say they're wrong. They just said, oh, we have new light now.
yeah. The old light is that was for a different generation. This is new light for God's people now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is it's a horrible thing. Yeah,
it is.
because they never encouraged it, and you just think about like the people who had so much potential to be to be engineers or doctors or anything. I just think that that ties into a lot of other, that policy, or what do you call it, like them, enforcing this, don't go to higher education back in my day and before that. And then when people wake up, they don't have they don't have and they don't have the right mindset or the education or the workmanship to navigate the world,
Yeah,
like the finances, financially either, because that's all tied in. That's all tied in. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, there's so many poor people that have good jobs in cults because
Hmm.
they don't know how to they're not allowed to invest, they're not allowed to build retirement, they're not allowed to
That is
do anything
just
like
like,
that.
why? Because it's a doomsday cult. Why would you invest? Why would you
Yeah.
invest when
We
it's
are
like,
your investment.
yeah, we had
Jehovah's your
to.
investment.
Did you have to give like
Tithe?
money? Yeah, like,
Oh, a lot.
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to give a lot of money. And if you didn't, then you couldn't keep Passover. And if you couldn't keep Passover, then you're going to hell, right? Everything's
Wow.
about hell.
Yeah. Whew.
So if
Oh,
you
so
don't
you guys
tithe,
had hell and paradise, I'm assuming, or
yes.
heaven.
But the
Okay.
most they talked about was hell.
Interesting. That's
It's more
very
about
like
fear.
fear. That's
Very
so much
fearful.
fear. Yeah, we didn't
Well,
talk about hell. It was more Armageddon. It was either you're going to paradise, you're part of the heavenly body, and that's it. Those were kind of like the classes, but I don't, because it's kind of like the Jehovah God will wipe out everyone. So there
yeah,
is no, I guess there's Gehenna, but we
yeah.
didn't really focus too much on that part.
Oh, they loved. I would say there was a healthy messaging when it
Hmm.
came to heaven, right? They did a lot of heaven, right?
Yeah.
But their most favorite thing was to talk about hell and to show people burning in hell and to show people like in fire and stuff. And not only that, but the kids would see it too.
Yeah, we definitely had illustrations that showcased that. Um, yeah, the way that they would, the fear is very. It's. I think the word is maybe it's very
Overused?
sly. No, no, it's very
Oh,
sly how they instill fear in you, because it's always, yeah. We did have illustrations. I remember even as a children book that had Revelation and all that stuff. There was definitely scary pictures, but when we talk about fear, it was definitely instilled in very subtle ways.
right.
Yeah. So,
We had a different approach. It was more in your face all the time.
oh yeah, ours were more sly and insidious. It was, woof. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was fear of God, and then fear of elders, and then fear of getting caught, or fear of making your own decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having your own thought. That's not
Yeah.
God's thought. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of fear.
Okay. So walk me through then. Okay, so you were a pioneer. You were doing all the things. You were preaching, you were believing, you were following, you were submissive, obeying. Then
Hmm.
walk me through. Okay, COVID happened. And
Yeah.
then what kind of woke you up from there?
Yeah, I don't know if you know the term like physically out, mentally in.
Yes, a lot of
So
people
I
know that term.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mormons know it. You're part of a doomsday cult, you know that. Yeah,
yeah,
so because I had actually well let me backtrack because that was like happened during the pandemic, but a few years before that, um I actually went through a divorce. So again, I had a headship arrangement. So I but after my divorce, right, I became more indoctrinated. I was a once I became a single sister, I became more indoctrinated again because uh you know I had an all in all out mentality, right?
yeah.
My parents were, my immediate family were never witnesses. And so I was the only witness in my family, so I took it very seriously. And so when my then husband left the organization, I said, "Great, you're no longer my head. It's just me and Jehovah." You know, so I became more indoctrinated, and I used my singleness to the full. I, went out preaching to different countries and with my other fellow pioneers, and I associated a lot with Bethelites and other pioneers because I really wanted to be a good sister.
What are Bethelites?
Bethelites, they have a we have Jehovah's Witnesses. They have it's like the House of God. They have a facility in New York, and they kind of work there.
Okay,
Bethelites are, yeah.
so it's kind of like
Um,
General Assembly or something like that, like the General Conference type,
I mean,
with like the leaders.
yeah, that's where the governing body is.
Gotcha,
It's kind of an elite thing,
gotcha,
to be a Bethelite, right? It's another status thing,
gotcha.
but just associating yourselves with Bethelites and things like that, but and pioneers because they're the ones that are just very
On the
into
front
it,
line.
very
Yeah.
serious. Yeah. Um, so I got really into it. And what's so interesting is like the more I extended myself, Adam, the more lonely I felt,
Yeah.
and I couldn't understand why. And because I was doing all that I was like literally, I was like, well, I I married a guy with status. I didn't marry a worldly person. And I started to just think about like I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm praying and I don't understand why do I still feel empty. And that I think was the beginning of my depression, I think I had the worst mental health when I was in the organization.
Right.
And because I couldn't figure out what was happening. And this was before the pandemic. And I remember I was so desperate because I started to feel like I was like, I know this is the truth. I know this is the truth, but it's me. It has to be me, right? Because I just don't think I feel like I'm missing something because I don't the more that I do, the more I feel empty. And so this was the time when I started to, because out of my desperation, I started to look into personal development material. And I remember on my social media feed, there was a personal development seminar that popped up in my social media feed. And I live in Philadelphia. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a conference coming up with like these, personal development gurus, right? And what they had on the screen, it resonated with me. It resonated with me. I was like, you know what? Let me just get. I was so scared to buy a ticket because I was like, this is a worldly. This is a
Yeah.
worldly event. I've never been to an event like this. I was so
Yeah.
scared. You always got to do things secretly, and I secretly bought the ticket. I was so scared. It's so weird, right? Personal development. I'm so scared of going to a personal development event.
Red
I
flag.
bu- and then so when a personal development event came, um it was an all-day event, but there was one thing in that event that made me have hope again, right? From depression to hope. And this was it. Was when this was actually a Tony Robbins event. I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, but
Who
um,
doesn't know who Tony Robbins is?
yeah, he was in. It was like I didn't know who he was, and all these other speakers. But anyway, I was desperate to just be open to it. So in one of his segments, he had this meditation, part of his event, and I was so scared of this meditation thing that he was doing because
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, when we say the word meditation, is very different from reality's version of what the real meditation is, right?
Right.
And he told us to they dimmed the lights. He told us to close our eyes, and I was so scared because I was thinking Satan.
Like
Satan's.
pagan.
I was thinking like, oh my gosh, this is satanic. Closing my eyes. And so Tony was doing like a guided meditation. I've never heard anything like it. But I just leaned into it and I was like, whatever, what do I got to lose? I'm depressed, lonely, unhappy. Let me just give this a try. So I was just a little bit open to the instructions he was giving to this guided meditation. And all of a sudden, I closed my eyes, but it was the first time I allowed myself to just think, to just flow, to just feel. And I felt something internally, like my inner self opening. And I started crying. It was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what is this? And then later I realized, I was like, Aubrey, that was the first time your authenticity was breaking through. That was the first time you were meeting yourself again. And you're saying, let's start over. And after that, Adam, I was like, you know what? I'm physically in and I need to figure out how to be physically out. And then I just started strategizing. And from then on, I was like, that was like before pandemic, but I still believed in, everything.
The
The
truth.
truth. I still, because
Yeah.
I never looked at, I just knew that, you know what, this is not for me. This may be the
Something's
truth, but
off.
yeah, I was just like, no, at the time I was still like, this is still the truth, but it's not my truth. I'm not happy, and so I need to leave this environment because I just felt a glimpse of hope. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, but I need to learn how to just get out of this environment because I found something. It's uncertain, but it's hopeful. I'm not
And it's real.
happy, but it's like, yes. And I was like, I don't care what degree or what level of um chaos I have to go through. I need to break through this. And so I think that was like 2019 or something like that. And then pandemic happened, but I'm still like mentally in it because I still think it's the truth. I'm just not,
Right.
I'm just out of it. I'm like
Yeah.
going about my day, going to work, hanging out with my coworkers now at this point because I have to find another community.
Yeah.
Right. I had to let go of them and then, latch on to another community.
Yeah.
And plus I've always wanted to do things at work. I just couldn't. I was
Yep.
very loyal. And so I was like, finally, I can, start networking. I could start, so I started doing that as a way to kind of, ease into the real world was through my work, my corporate world. And then the pandemic happened. We all got work from home. We all started working from home. And I was a mess. It was a mess because here I am. I'm into personal development now. But personal development couldn't save me from what was happening internally, like in my mind and in my body.
Yeah.
Because my mind was still in Armageddon. Like, oh, this is the last days. This is the signs of the last days. Like everything that's happening worldwide, diseases and, deaths.
Yeah.
This is what we were reading. And the effects of that trauma was I couldn't feel my face. Like there would be days at work, I'm working from home and I couldn't talk because when I had so much fear like that, I freeze. So things my body started to like be inflamed. I couldn't like there was just like I couldn't explain what was happening and I couldn't explain I couldn't share that with anyone. couldn't share what was happening because I didn't even know what was happening. And so I remember my leaders at work they were so concerned about me because they're like, Aubrey, you're not talking anymore. Like, what's going on? Like, and they just really encouraged me to just see a therapist. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see a therapist because I think they're in my mind. I'm still thinking that Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't really seek therapy, you know. But I was like, you know what? I'm really desperate again. Personal development is not working. I need professional help. And that's when I decided to see a therapist. And then I had a few rounds of therapy. There was one therapist when I spoke to her, and my condition was really bad because, again, I couldn't speak and I didn't know what was going on. And I remember the therapist, she saw me and because it was on video, and she just saw how distraught I was, like how I couldn't communicate, how nervous I looked, how unsure, how scared. And then she was just like, well, just tell me a little bit about you. Like, what happened? What's going on? And other than COVID, but like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I told the therapist, I was like, well, you know, um, I was part of a religion called Jehovah's Witnesses, and I left the religion recently, and everything that we are seeing is everything that was depicted that would come before Armageddon. And
Yeah.
I'm so scared. And so there was this huge pause. My therapist looked at me and she goes, I have to tell you something. I said, what? And she said, that religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, that's a cult. And what you are experiencing right now is spiritual abuse. You've experienced spiritual abuse from that organization. And I was so mad at her at the same time. And then I got angry. And I'm glad I went through years of therapy. And the healing is a journey. But what's more important, I woke up, I'm free, I'm living the life that was meant for me.
Yeah. There's a difference between, a lot of these cults say, hey, we're free. Like, we can come and go however we want. Like, we're free. That's what they say.
Yeah.
But that's not real freedom. That's like if you go to North Korea and you ask the people in North Korea, like, hey, are you free? Absolutely. We're
Hmm.
totally free. Like, we have the greatest, yeah, it's hard, but, we have but on the outside, you're like, no, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's the same with these cult members. Like, you ask them, are you free? Like, do you feel free? Do you feel hope? Oh, of course I do.
Yeah.
But the freedom and hope that they have is the stuff that they've told themselves over and over again. It's not actual freedom.
It's the indoctrination.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really the indoctrination and the environment. It's a system. The Jehovah's Witnesses and cults, they're very strategic in how they design the system for people to live and for people to communicate and for people to stay. That the goal is for them
Yeah.
to stay and not to leave. And it's a system. And it's like and they put these belief systems in your mind. And if they can control your mind, they can control your entire life. That's how it is. So, if they can hijack your mind, they can hijack your entire life. Who you can talk to, what you can watch, what you can hear, everything. Your whole experience. And
Yeah.
so you're kind of just stuck in this bubble and you think, yeah, I'm free. Yeah. That's because that's all that you know.
Yeah.
And
I
they
would
instill
say,
this fear so that you can't, it's just scary out. the real
Yeah,
world.
everything is against you, everything is
Yeah.
evil, everything is bad. We're the only thing that's good in this world.
Yeah.
And I feel like they convince their members that life is
Yeah.
like an elevator ride,
Uh-huh.
right? It's just this group of people, and we're
Mhm.
just waiting, just sitting here
Mhm.
together, waiting for this promised Armageddon, this promised, whatever the case is. It could change cult to cult, but it's just
Yeah.
life is not an elevator ride though. It's a bicycle ride, right? Like you're riding
Mhm.
through nature, you're riding with friends, family, but they treat it like it's an elevator ride and it's not. And pretty soon
Yeah.
you're going to get to the level where you have to get off and you're like, I didn't do anything. I've just
Yeah.
it's like an elevator ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since you've left, what are some of the things that you've done, some of the accomplishments that you've had since you've left the
Mm.
organization?
Sure. No, let's it starts with the awakening during the pandemic because
Right.
after I woke up, I think a lot of it was self-healing. I
Yeah.
had to learn how to apologize to myself and show myself compassion. And that was really the most important part for me because it just sets the foundation for everything else, to live authentically and to be in alignment with yourself. I think a big part of it when you leave the cult, you have to learn how to forgive yourself. So after I got a little bit comfortable with self-love, right, I started to get back into the whole trajectory of personal development after I got professional help. And this whole introduction to self-love, right? Because this is still during the pandemic, I'm still in my corporate job. I started to become a like a realer version of myself. And I was again starting to communicate again and just be more alive, but a little bit more in alignment with myself,
Hmm.
which was amazing. And I couldn't stop sharing to my teammates about what I'm learning in my therapy during like, oh, my therapy and about self-compassion, blah, blah, blah. And my leaders were like, oh, that's great. Can you just share what you're learning with the rest of us?
Yeah.
And I said, okay, because it's like it's kind of weird, but at the same time, it's like I couldn't keep it to myself. I
Yeah.
was so in love with it. And so I started to, I was like the curator for a lot of this material around personal development, self compassion. And I would share what I've learned with my internal team. My internal team loved it. And then they suggested, well, can you share and can you coach us and present during our quarterly staff meetings? I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. And so I
That's cool.
started, yeah. And again, you just have to be open to things, crazy things like that. I mean, to me, it was like, this is weird. Why would they? But I was like, you know what? I'm living a new life now. I'm gonna try to be as open as I can to things because I used to say no to everything,
Yeah.
and I said sure. And so from there, it led to like conversations about coaching, and I fell in love with 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 what I was doing, and I that's when I decided to actually go back to school for my psychology degree. And so I went back to school and then I actually quit my full-time corporate job because I wanted to fully pursue uh, this whole thing as a life coach. So I became a certified life coach, and then after that I started my YouTube channel, and then after that I decided, you know what, I want to do more public speaking. So I got into public speaking, and then I get invited to give talks, and then I started a Facebook group called XJW Professionals, where it's kind of just focused on what are we creating after we left cult, and how are we helping each other thrive and build a new life together type of thing. So those are just some things I started to do. Um, yeah, after I left the cult.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I think saying yes to more opportunities is something that I've had to work on too, because before it was just like, no, I can't, no, I can't, no, I can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as you're comfortable with what's being presented, and when I mean being comfortable with, like, it's not something that you feel like you're going to get hurt over or like someone's taking advantage of you. I'm not saying
Hmm.
say yes to that, but new opportunities like, hey, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Hey, you're wanting me to do this? Okay, cool. I'll give it a shot. Like,
Yep.
whatever, let's try it. So I think that is something that a lot of people should take to heart and just start saying yes to things that you're comfortable with and see what happens.
Yeah.
So for the last little bit here, maybe I want to ask, what's some advice that, regardless of which organization people are part of, if people are indoctrinated and lost and maybe they don't know what to do and they're trying to find an out, what would be some advice that you would give them at this time?
Is is this a person who is in and they're questioning?
I would say so. Because I don't think if they were in, they would be watching.
Oh,
But
okay.
if they're mentally out, physically in, what would you say to
Okay.
them?
So someone who is physically in but mentally out. What would be my advice to them?
Correct.
Ooh, okay. I think it depends on the age. Because if they're
Interesting.
young, they're very young. No, because if they're young, it's kind of hard.
Yeah,
I it would be hard to suggest, like, if you're under, I don't know, 16, 18 years, 16 years old, it would be very challenging for you to just get out and leave, you know?
for sure. I get that.
Sometimes I think you kind of just have to, you're still under your
Parents.
parents' roof. Yeah. So that would be a little bit challenging. But if you are, but you can, still build something while you're in. That's the
Yeah,
thing. You can
yeah,
definitely still build while you're in and prepare to leave. Yes, because and that's kind of like when you're an adult, and let's say, I left in my 30s, and someone who was in my situation, who was still physically in and then maybe, mentally out, try to find a community,
yeah,
a healthy community, and do your own research. Learn how to think critically. Learn how to trust yourself and make, you know, decisions based on who you are. And I know that's kind of hard, because how do you know who you are? Seek therapy.
yeah.
That
And even
helps.
maybe see if you can help your parents get out strategically by showing them bits and pieces of information in a strategic way so they can potentially leave as well with you,
Yeah, that is delicate. I think that's very delicate.
for sure.
I think it's very delicate because they're so brainwashed. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
What about somebody who was in your position, right? They're in their 20s, 30s, and
mhm.
they're mentally out, physically in. I mean, I always tell people just research.
Yeah.
If it is the truth, right, and this is God, this is the truth, then it shouldn't matter how much you research. You should come right back to where you were, if you were indeed in the truth and you
Mhm.
were with God or whatever the case is. So
Yeah.
I would argue that that would be the case, but to what I found in all these organizations is when you actually do the research, you don't
Mhm.
come back, and there's a reason for that. It's not Satan, it's because
Yeah.
it's quite the opposite, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of deprogramming that you have to do, because your mind was hijacked for a long time and you've been operating within their belief system.
Yeah,
So your entire life was completely controlled by their beliefs. So you need to learn how to take your mind back. And I think that's why learning about how the mind works and all of that, learning how to reconnect with yourself, finding a community, and, just doing things, um, that's healthy. Um, you know, because I think people have this. You have to do your research, not just on Jehovah's Witnesses alone, but just cults alone,
yeah.
mind control alone, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, because
Mental
what
health
the
too.
yes, because the tendency that a lot of cult members, when they leave the cult, they end up falling into another cult, and it's
Yeah,
because they don't understand mind control.
yeah,
And they don't understand the different tactics.
yeah.
So, when you leave the organization, it doesn't mean that you're free. When you that's just a step to becoming free when you leave. But freedom, again, is living who you were meant to be, thriving.
And educating yourself on what happened.
Part of it, yes. Educating yourself on what happened, self-love, having, even making peace with what happened, is I think was a huge thing for me. Not blaming myself, but saying, that was the past. Let's move forward and let's make things better for your future
Yeah.
self. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Aubrey, I appreciate you coming on the channel. I appreciate you sharing everything. And for those who are curious, I will leave. We're going to collaborate on this, so I'll send you a collaboration link, and I'll also leave your stuff in the description. Go ahead and check them out, guys. She's got a lot of really good videos, got a lot of really good stuff going on. So dive into her stuff because she's got a lot of really educational stuff too. And honestly, it helped me just like watching a few of your videos. I was just like, oh wow, like just seeing how, because you can kind of watch like from the beginning and then you watch like the later videos, you can just see like progress. And I think
Oh
that's the
yeah.
case with anybody who leaves an organization. You can see the progress through their whole, their journey, right? And we're still on that journey, right? Like it doesn't mean that we've found everything. It doesn't mean we've come full circle or anything. We're still in the process. We're still learning, growing, and that's the point of life. That's the point of what we're doing here. So again, I appreciate you coming on, Aubrey. Any
Thank
last
you.
words
No,
you want to
thank
say to anybody?
no, thank you for you know, inviting me, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. It's educational, and just let's just keep educating people about mind control so that people can live authentically and in alignment with their truth. So thank you.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, you guys, this is Find the Alternative with Aubrey Cruz, and we appreciate you watching us, and stay tuned on the next one, and we'll see ya.